Woo. Yay! We
Hello.
are live. Hello, everyone. And for those that are going to join us, have joined us, or that will be catching the replay, thank you for taking the time out to join myself, Miriam, and Dr. Kate, our burnout specialist. I'm so excited to have her. I know you guys have heard me and Miriam preach often about caregiver burnout and ways to see it coming and the tools and tricks that we've used to continue to avoid it if at all possible. So that's why I was so glad to come across Dr. Kate Steiner, because she is all things burnout. So I do want to pass the baton to Miriam. Introduce yourself, my sister.
Thank you, Ashley. My name is Miriam Baldwin. I'm the caregiver to both my husband and my brother for more than 20 years now. And I burned out myself. And I'm so happy that Dr. Kate Steiner is here. I'm writing a book right now, so stay tuned. Please make sure you follow me. And I can't wait. I just can't wait to talk to Dr. Kate Steiner. So thank you.
All right, Dr. Kate, doctor in the house. I love when we can get professionals to speak with us. So thank you so much for being here and taking time out on your Saturday. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah. First, I just want to offer a little gratitude to both you, Ashley, and Miriam, and having me here today to impart some of the things that I've learned about burnout in my research and journey. So hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Kate Steiner. I'm a burnout recovery coach and founder of Lift Wellness Consulting. And I work with people who are burdened by with burnout through a recovery process that is self-reflective and focuses on a number of different wellness areas. And this all started from my own experience with burnout. And I needed to find a place into recovery, but I also needed to own that burnout was not something that I could avoid, that I actually needed to integrate recovery practices into my daily life so that I could better manage my stress, to burn events, to things that were going on in my life. And so now my mission is really to work with people and get this information out so that I can help others live healthier, happier lives.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now that you brought it up, I'm interested. If you feel like sharing, what did burnout look for you? Like, how did that look like for you?
Yeah. So when I think about my own real big time burnout experience, it was about 8 years ago. And I was working full time in a job that was just very high demand, lots of evenings, lots of weekend work, just lots and lots of hours were expected to be committed to this job. I was also working on my Ph.D. at the time. So I was in my doctorate program and I was in a really unhealthy relationship. So you have like the trifecta of all of these things happening in life. And I look back at that time and I really refer to this as being the worst version of myself. And this was all in relation to my burnout and what I was experiencing, but I was very short-tempered with people. I would react in anger more than any other emotion that I would have. And then I would get angry about being angry. And so I would have like angry tears happening and those kinds of things. But I'm generally a very playful person. I like to think that I am a very fun person. And I wasn't fun. I wasn't playful. Things that I used to love and used to bring me so much joy, like dance classes and ballet, just didn't. So even that, I felt burdened by, and it was a struggle to even go to a dance class when I knew that I would probably feel better at the end of it. It just felt too challenging to even get into that space. And when I realized that this is what I was experiencing, I also recognized that I was so far into this burnout cycle that I couldn't find the way out all on my own. So I sought the advice of a counselor and worked with her to get back to the better, happier version of myself.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I recognize some of the signs because I had them myself. And one of the things people often ask is, can burnout be permanent?
That's a great question. I kind of function from the mindset that while we can't avoid burnout, it's not something that you have to always be in. But I guess it could be permanent if you don't take the steps to implement recovery from it. So I guess it could be a choice. I would say that a human might, and maybe they're making that unconsciously or not recognizing what's going on in regard to, but they're so overly stressed that they're not even sure how to pull themselves out of it. So I guess in that fashion, it could be that. So certainly my goal is to help people recognize it so that they're like, oh, this is what I'm experiencing. I don't have to feel this way all the time.
And one other question they also ask me is, how long does it generally take to recover? Mm-hmm. And I think that it depends on the person. How willing are you to do the homework?
Yeah.
So I think it differs per person, but I would like to know how you have experienced that. Mm-hmm. The recovery, how long did it take?
Yeah, it has a variety of variables, like really any kind of recovery process, or when you're working through a mental health challenge, anything to that effect. So one, yes, absolutely depends on the person and their willingness to set boundaries, to make changes in their lives, to implement recovery practices. That certainly will add to how long the recovery process can take. Also, where are they at in the burnout cycle? Are they early on in the burnout, or have they been experiencing these feelings day after day for weeks, months, years at a time? And recognizing that the path back might be a little slower if they've been in that space for a really long time.
That's very interesting you say that, because I can distinctly remember when I've had 2 different bouts of burnout. Mm-hmm. And the first one I can attribute to grief, because I didn't handle it. Mm-hmm. I didn't process it. So I just kept it bottled in, and, the anxiety and stress that goes with that. So, I burnt out just from the constant movement, because I didn't want to sit still and deal with the loss. And I just kept going. And I burnt out. And then, I guess I just didn't realize, like, that stretch of time, it happened to have been years. Mm-hmm. And it's really real when you sit and think about it. Like, I let myself go for that long. Like, why did I not, attempt to even process it until I found myself sitting, in a hospital room, getting diagnosed with different ailments. So I'm so glad you mentioned it can take years. I mean, because it can. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what would be the first approach? I'm sorry, Miriam, I know you wanted to ask a question. what would be the first approach to like identifying, I guess, like where you are? Like,
Mhm.
okay, I'm here and I see myself like I see the train coming, but I can't move from the tracks.
Mhm.
Like, how do we get unstuck, I guess, in order to help ourselves?
Yeah. So I know for me, my personal experience was that someone else really had to point it out to me, someone who cared about me. And in this case, it was my mother. And I think that often, God, love mama, happy Mother's Day, mom. So I think oftentimes for a lot of people that recognition comes from an external factor, right? So for you, like being diagnosed with various things, being in the hospital, or having a loved one say you're not yourself anymore and you haven't been yourself for a really long time, or I miss you, and like you're here like physically, but like the Kate we knew hasn't been here for a while. And so for me, it was that recognition of actually watching my mother, like watching in her face, her heart break for me because she wanted so badly to fix what was going on for me, and knowing that she couldn't, that only I could. And that recognition for me, something clicked. And I realized that I I needed to do something differently, but I also recognized that I wasn't sure what that was. So for me, it made sense to seek, outside help. And I think that that's the first courageous step that many of us take when we recognize that we're in that state of burnout. The second piece is recognizing I'm not sure how to do this just on my own, and then taking that step to find help, which is really hard when we are helpers ourselves and in that caregiving space, because something in our mind is about, no, I'm helping others, and we forget about, putting on the oxygen mask for ourselves first. And in that piece, anytime you travel, they're like, take care of yourself in this capacity and then help others. And like we do the opposite as caretakers often, and as helpers just naturally we want to do for others. And so I think often we push through, when really taking a step back and taking that courageous step to ask for help is the biggest first step to get us back on that journey to recovery.
Yeah, definitely my mom and my boyfriend were the ones that said, like, girl, I don't know what's going on, but you need
What's up?
to, yeah, you need to figure it out, because you went from this bubbly, upbeat tempo person to just being nasty. And I didn't realize it. It's weird because it just became a new normal,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it until someone pointed it out. I mean,
Yeah.
my feelings were hurt. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh yeah.
But
No, it doesn't feel good when someone points it out to you. You're like, what do you mean I'm not being myself? What do you mean I'm being an angry person and then I'm,
yeah,
mean to you? It's like, no, I'm not. Oh wait, am I?
yeah.
Yeah.
And in that moment when you're being combative, it's
Yeah.
like, oh wait, yeah, I kind of am, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what?
But I
You
know
know what
very
was
question.
embarrassing? Sorry, Ashley. You know what was embarrassing? I remember the moment they found out. Martin was recovering from his major surgery, and a social worker asked me the question, Miriam, how are you doing? I cried for 15 minutes. I really wanted to punch that woman because I didn't want to know that I burned out. I kept going for months as a caregiver. I had my superhero cape on, and Ashley knows what that means. We had our superhero cape on. And it's, you feel so uncomfortable in front of your loved one, the social worker. You're vulnerable. I really didn't like that moment. But I thanked her later for asking me that question because it saved my life, literally. Burnout is a nasty place. Absolutely. So I really thanked her. I said, okay, in that moment, I really, really, really wanted to punch you because we feel like we need to help our loved ones. But burnout is right behind the corner. So it's really relatable what you were just saying, Kate and Ashley. Yeah, absolutely. So when you started with the recovery, Kate, what were the next things you did? Can you give us some examples, things you did?
Sure. Yeah. So what I started to do, and then what I've developed into the model that I use with clients and continue to use myself today, is the first piece of that is observation. So that's that recognition piece, right? And then taking time to reflect so that you get better at recognizing what I call burn events as they are happening and recognizing when they are about to happen. So burn events are really daily circumstances, activities, events, difficult humans that cause us to feel emotionally drained or fatigued or overwhelmed, but we're not yet in that space where we really are feeling as though life and work is a burden, which is that full-on experience with burnout. And so if we are able to identify these events as they come, and as they pass, and as they may be coming up in the future, as we can expect them and plan for them in that way, and then plan our recovery for them in that way, that helps us really be more resilient to anything that's unexpected that might come up, and more resilient to that full-on burnout because we have incorporated recovery into our way of life. And so the second piece, so there's that observation piece, that reflection piece, and then there's preparation, which is preparing for burn events as we identify them if they're coming up for our calendar. And so if we have a really busy work week, or, challenging meetings, or we know we're going to be impacted by a challenging family member or something to that effect, we can plan a little bit differently for what our time and looks like going into that space. So maybe you do a relaxation practice beforehand, or you plan your meals differently, or you plan your sleep schedule differently. And then you also put a plan into place for how you're going to recover specifically from that day, that event, that meeting, that space. And then the third piece is recovery. So recovery looks a little bit different for every person. And I think what gets overwhelming for people is that when they hear recovery, they're like, oh my gosh, I have to completely stop everything I'm doing, and I can't do that. And that's not the case. Recovery can be really small steps, small rituals, small routines that we add into our day just to help us reset and recalibrate throughout the day. So grounding practices, breathing exercises, starting your day with a morning reflection practice, or incorporating a gratitude practice into the end of your day are some ways that are small steps that you can add recovery into your day-to-day that doesn't feel super overwhelming and as though you have to stop everything you're doing, because that can be hard when you're in that space too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love how you mention the small steps, because Miriam and I say that all the time in our respective caregiver support groups. It doesn't have to be huge, leaps. It can be baby steps. Just start somewhere, as long as you're just taking that time for yourself. Something else Miriam and I always say, you have to take care of yourself, because for the caregivers out there, I know for a fact that if I don't take care of myself, I'm not going to be able to take care of my loved ones to the best ability that I can. And I know no one is going to be able to take care of, specifically like my husband, the way that I can. I mean, it's just that simple, I know it's hard in theory and practice to do, but it really is that simple. I don't know anybody else on this earth other than me that's going to take care of my husband like me. So I have to start reclaiming my health in order to do so.
Yeah.
I'm sure Miriam would agree.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Those baby steps, I had to take those baby steps. I got overwhelmed indeed when I thought of, okay, I need to do something, and I wanted to get rid of that burnout within a week. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. I had to force myself to take baby steps, like 10 minutes breathing exercises, or even just 5 deep breaths. Writing a lot, because it was all too much in here.
Yeah.
I had to start scheduling. I didn't want to start with scheduling because I thought, I don't have time to schedule. That's the way I was thinking. I really had to change my mindset. And it took me quite some time. It took me months, but I didn't give up. I didn't give up. It wasn't easy. I'm not going to lie. It wasn't easy. But I promised myself that I would never, ever, ever burn out again. And of course, sometimes it does happen that I feel exhaustion, fear, anxiety. I'm human.
Yes.
So whenever I feel it, I go back to my mirror, just like I did years ago, more than 18 years ago. And I ask myself the question, Miriam, what are you going to do for you today? And then I'm, okay, yep, I do remember. And I really want people to know, caregivers and non-caregivers, that you can do something about it. Please don't be like us. So, Dr. Kate, do you have, other than those breathing exercises, those tips, do you have other tools that you can share with us that are so important for our viewers and listeners that might help them to prevent the burnout or to cope with a burnout?
Yeah, absolutely. So I mentioned the burn events and how these are things that we can actually like look at our calendar and identify some of them, know that they're coming. And so I think it's incredibly helpful to do a calendar audit. And so looking back at a week or a month and identifying anything that was there that was a burn event, and then doing some reflection in, is this something that comes up every week or every month for me, so that I can look at it next time and prepare for it differently, recover from it differently. And then looking ahead at your day, your week, your month, whatever time frame is most comfortable for you, and looking forward and saying, okay, I know I've got this meeting, or this doctor's appointment might be challenging, or I'm feeling anxious about this interaction, something to that effect, and identifying that, naming it as a burn event. That's helpful, because then it's not happening to us. We've already taken control and ownership of it. And then thinking about how you're going to prepare for it in that moment. What do you need to get yourself in your best space before that event occurs? And then what do you need to help yourself reset after the event occurs? So that's one thing, what I call the calendar audit. Another thing when it comes to recovery is developing your comfort list. So this is a list of items, things, activities, places, people that immediately bring you comfort. They bring you joy. They help you feel cozy, warm, comforted, all of those things. So if you think about how we would comfort a child when they're upset and overwhelmed, you want to put things on your list that are going to comfort you in that same way when you're feeling tired or overwhelmed in that same sense. So some of the things that I have on my comfort list include macaroni and cheese. And it is the number one thing on my comfort list. It does rank above my partner. I love him very much, but mac and cheese is it, y'all. That it just does something for me and my soul. It makes me happy. And I eat it probably about once a week, if not more, when I'm having more challenging times. But building that comfort list, the Hallmark Channel, Hallmark movies is also on my comfort list. Playing with my dog, snuggling with her, spending time with my partner, water. If I can get into water in some way is an important piece of recovery. So again, smaller things that you can implement pretty quickly that can bring you some ease and comfort and stress relief. And then I think it's incredibly important that we continue to play. We are not nearly playful enough in our adult space. And we get into these zones of, I must be serious and I have to get through all these things, that we forget that play is actually great in relieving our stress. It offers us more creative space to think, so we're better problem solvers. And it's fun. It gets us laughing. It gets us moving around a little bit. So play looks, for adults, it looks like dancing, singing. I sing to my pets. They are terrible, terrible songs. I'm not getting a record deal. But it does make me laugh. It makes my partner laugh. It makes the pets look at me like I'm a little weird. That's okay. The other day, I was having kind of a tough day, and I decided to utilize the filters on Snapchat. So I was turning my animals into cartoons by putting cartoon eyes on them. And it was the funniest thing I had ever seen. At least in that moment, it made me laugh so hard. So finding ways to bring laughter into your life are some of the quick recovery tips that I can offer.
Yeah.
I mean, you hit on some of my favorite ones. So, I love to sing, even though I know I'm not getting a record deal, but I love to sing, love to dance. One of my favorite things is to hop in my car and just go for a drive. And I have my own little concerts, just belting out all the tunes and dancing. I'm sure people looking over in the car, they're like, what is wrong with her? It doesn't matter. This is for me. So, I love that. And I love how your eyes just lit up when you talked about mac and cheese. I can totally tell, like, that's first. That comes first. I love that. But I think it's important to find the small things, and the more small things you find to give you joy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Ashley, go on.
Oh no, I'm letting you talk.
Oh, I thought you wanted to say something. In the midst of sorrow, I'm not sure if sorrow is the right word, when you're caring for a loved one who's very ill, it's so hard to work on yourself. It is. But those little things can do so much for you. I remember that I started with 5-minute breathing exercises, 3-minute journaling. And when I found out that it relieved some stress, I wanted more. Those 3 minutes became 5 minutes. 5 minutes became 10. 10 became 15. And that's how I started claiming my me time. I didn't start with 1 hour because I simply didn't have the courage to take 1 hour for myself. But I had no choice. My health was going that way because of the burnout. And so my question for you, Dr. Kate, is, did your community, because your mom knew about your burnout, right? Did the rest of the family, your friends, did you tell them about your burnout? You told your community, you shared it with them. Because that's something
I
that's
did.
difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. I did. And you know, and I chose how I shared that with different individuals and in different ways, right? So my supervisor got to understand a certain perspective of what I was going through in that regard, because I needed to set some non-negotiables when it came to work, and I needed to establish some boundaries there. And I couldn't do that without communicating with him in what my needs were. So, but that communication looked very different than, you know, what I shared with my family members, or even, you know, my chair for my PhD program. She and I had a very close relationship. So, and since it was a counselor education program, you talk a little bit more about your emotions and what you're going through in your life in those sense. So she knew it in a different perspective and those kinds of things. But I think that, you know, you bring up a really important point, is when we're in this place, sometimes it is hard to let other people know what we are going through and what we're doing to establish the recovery in our lives, right? But when we think about when we're taking that time for ourselves, and rightly so, because it's important for us to have time for ourselves so that we can be more productive and more giving and caring when we are with others. But we have to communicate that expectation to people around us. So when we set boundaries, really what we're doing is helping other people understand what we need. So we're communicating our needs to others, and we are teaching them how we expect them to interact with us. And so I always, as a supervisor throughout my life, times that I always got myself most in trouble was that when I had an expectation for someone around me or for the person I was working with, but I never told them what the expectation was. And then when they didn't meet the expectation, I got upset about it. But when I took a step back and was like, oh, but I never actually told them that that's what I expected of them. And so setting boundaries is the same piece. You have to communicate that so that they know your expectations and those non-negotiable pieces. So I love that you brought that up, because I think that's incredibly important.
Love that. You know, we've had a discussion. What was it, 2 or 3 days, Miriam? A discussion with Stephanie with anxiety. Oh my goodness! And such a big part of, I see anxiety and burnout going hand in hand, and you know, just setting boundaries can help. You know, you know, not have the stressful and anxious filled moments, avoiding burnout city, like I like to call it, because it really is like a destination that you're going to. You just don't want to go there. Trust us, caregivers out there. You don't want to go there. Miriam and I are model A. You don't want to go there. I promise you, it's not fun. But yeah, it's setting boundaries. It's amazing. And, you know, something that she mentioned in that talk we had was, when someone negatively is affected by your boundaries, that's not on you. That's setting the boundaries. It's totally a reflection of them, because that probably means they were using you in your lack of boundaries, which was ended up causing you the stress and burnout. It was like, mind blown. And it's so true. You know, you can only be sucked of so much energy before you have zero to give for yourself. And then as caregivers, if you have zero energy for yourself, how are you giving that person the best care? You can't.
No, you can't. You can't. And you know what? Saying no to someone else is saying yes to yourself. Most of the times, saying no to someone else is saying yes to yourself. And I really, really struggled with setting boundaries. Today, if my husband or my brother asks me to help them with something, if I've scheduled that time for myself, now I'm able to say, bro, listen, As much as I love you, this time is scheduled for Miriam right now. I can't help you now unless it's life-threatening, but that's not a case. I own my well-being. I own my me time. I claim it. I know that it's important for me, so I claim it. So setting boundaries was something I really had to learn because I was a people pleaser. And I shared the news about my burnout with my family. And it was easier for me to share it at work as well because I was working with doctors at that time. So they totally understood where I was coming from. So that's why I asked the question, did you share it with your community?
You know, Miriam, I think that was courageous for you to do. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't. I was embarrassed to. I didn't say anything to my family. It wasn't until, and a lot of my family didn't even know how bad my husband had gotten, to the point where I didn't know if he was even going to make it to our wedding. So, because I took it as a reflection of my caregiving abilities, because I wasn't, in my mind, I thought I wasn't doing a good job enough to keep him healthy, alive. And then I always thought, what is his family thinking? Like, they've entrusted me in, with his care, and here, the cancer keeps coming back. Like, what am I doing wrong? That's why I kept thinking to myself. So all those constant negative thoughts just kept turning, like wheels in a car that just keep rapidly turning, but you go nowhere. That's how I was at that point. And I just couldn't bear to tell anybody outside of my small circle. So I don't even think my husband even knew how bad I had gotten with my stress and anxiety. My mom did, though.
Moms always know, right?
Moms always know everything.
Yeah.
She even told me in the tone of my voice. She didn't even have to look at me. She just heard the tone of my voice and knew something was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Moms know everything. I don't get it. I don't know how they do. They have special powers.
They absolutely do. And I think, Ashley, I think what you're describing is really normal for a lot of people in that regard, in that I think for a long time, and I think it's getting better now. I think more people are talking about burnout in the space of that. I think the pandemic has changed that some too, in that we're recognizing it more as this actual state of being. And it's not just about our workspace or what's going on around you, that it is actually something that impacts us physically, emotionally, mentally, in all areas of our lives. But there's still some shame attached to it. And I think part of that comes from, we're for the longest time, people were talking about how, you prevent burnout, you avoid burnout, you keep it from happening to you. And I think it is really part of these feelings, emotions, these experiences are really part of our human condition. So while we can prevent and implement and integrate recovery so that we don't get to that end of the spectrum when it comes to burnout, like completely, fried city, that burnout city that you all talk about. We can take some tangents and pass off of that so that we're not getting to that same space, but we can't really completely avoid the experiences that we have with this, that overwhelm, the fatigue, feeling emotionally drained. But we can definitely build resilience to it. And so I think one of my goals, and the reason that I'm doing whatever I can to get in as many stages in front of as many people as possible to talk about this, is so that we don't experience that shame or that guilt that comes along with it, because that just hinders our ability to start our recovery process. And we definitely want people to be able to start that as soon as they can, as soon as they recognize where they're at.
Yeah. Do you think that someone who's suffering from burnout should have an accountability partner? Do you think that will help? One or two partners?
Yeah, I think anytime we include more humans to support us in anything, when we're working to make change in our lives or to do something differently, habit setting is really hard. And especially when we're doing that on our own, and it takes time to really establish habits and changes and impact in that regard. So I absolutely think that having, whether that be implementing, the help of a coach or a good friend, and having an accountability partner, maybe it's someone that in talking with them about their caregiver experience, they're like, oh, I'm in the same place. And we're like, all right, so every, Tuesday at this time, we're going to check in and we're just going to do a meditation from YouTube together or something to that effect. So I think having that accountability space is really important when we're creating change in our lives.
It feels good. It really feels good to have an accountability partner.
Yeah.
You feel, even if they only listen to you for 5 or 10 minutes to get certain things off of your chest, get some relief. Just you only have to listen.
Yeah, one of the things I like to set up, and so business building, being an entrepreneur, it can be hard. It can be a lonely place to work and those kinds of things. So as I'm, continuing to build my business, I have a coach. I have an accountability partner. And so one of the things that I do with my accountability partner is that we schedule our calls for half an hour. I get 15 minutes. She gets 15 minutes. So 15 minutes, the focus is, and we set a timer so that we can honor that for each other. And so we work through something that I'm struggling with or thoughts that I'm having for 15 minutes. And when that time is up, we shift gears and we, talk about what she's struggling with or what she's working on in that moment. And even in the moments where I'm like, oh, I didn't get to say all that I wanted to talk about, I still have enough, the energy in my mind gets firing and I get going and I'm like, okay, all the thoughts are coming now. So she just helped reset enough that I was like, okay, now I can do this. I can spend a little more time figuring this out or reflecting on this. Or she said some really great things that helped me think about this in a different way. And so, putting some structure into place when you are helping each other can be really important, especially when you're just kind of starting it out.
Miriam, we do this. We just need to set a timer. Because listen, Kate, we'll say, hey, sis, can you jump on a 5 or 10 minute call? 2 hours later. We need to do what Dr. Kate said, but put a timer. Put a timer on it.
And I absolutely love sometimes, if the conversation is going, that can be, I think of that as play too, right? So sometimes that freestanding, free flowing of time, you allowing for that too. But I do like the timer to at least be like, okay, let's put some time frame on this. But I definitely have friends in my life where I'm like, hey, can you take a quick call? We both know it's not going to be a quick call.
Right. Exactly. We know this going in, but it's still nice to say, oh, it's just gonna be quick, Oh goodness. But I think it's good to have those sort of people in your life too. Where you can pick up the phone and call and discuss real life issues, and then okay, so we've gotten this part out. What's next? Where do we go from here? Sort of thing, because I'm a big believer in everyone should have their moments because you're going to, but then I don't want to stay there. I want to keep going. Okay, what's next? Not to keep myself busy and distracted. That's totally different. I've done that multiple times. That's what has led me every time. That's what's led me to burnout. Staying busy to distract myself is totally different than taking myself out of a negative or stressful situation, because that's going to be best for my well-being. It's totally two separate things.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm still thinking about the timer, Ashley. And, we have so much in common as caregivers. And we are finally sharing our stories. So that's why we come up with so many ideas, like this conversation with you. I remember that Ashley texted me, "Sis, I have a great idea. I have a great burnout coach. Let's do this." I said, okay, I'm in. We go through a lot. And caregivers' burnout is rarely discussed. And it's time that the world knows what we're going through. So I'm really happy with those valuable things your advice. There are so many nuggets you shared, and I hope that all our viewers and listeners will work on it, because in the end we have to do it ourselves. Yeah, it's not a done for you package.
And it's also not selfish. Self-care is not selfish. You gotta take care of yourself. And I know people are like, "Oh, here she goes again," but really, you have to take care of yourself so you can take care of your loved ones. I mean, you just have to. You can't let the match get all the way burnt up, because then what's left? All right. So, definitely, like Miriam said, caregive. I think the whole spectrum of caregiving wasn't really talked much about until the pandemic, because a lot of people had to sit home, and a lot of paid caregiving agencies were letting people go because they weren't able to go inside homes, and then the families had to move in to take care of their loved ones, and they're like, "Oh, is this what grandma or auntie or my mom's been doing for all these years or whatever? Oh my goodness, this is wow." Yes, caregiving has been around for eons. When I was younger, watching my grandma take care of my great grandmother, watching my mom take care of her mom, I was younger. I didn't get it. But then when I turned 30 and had to become a caregiver myself, I was like, whoa, this is what y'all had to do? It's almost like you don't understand it until you put the shoes on. And empathizing and sympathizing with caregivers, especially family caregivers. Miriam and I are here for you all, just providing tips and tools for all caregivers so that you can avoid the burnout city, the extreme stress and anxiety. Like Dr. Kate said, you're not necessarily always going to steer clear of these things. But if we can lessen the effects of them, I feel like we've done a good job.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't have any questions for Dr. Kate. No, she shared I know she shared so many nuggets, and
Ashley
I'm
looks so
sorry.
shocked right now.
Oh,
what? You have no words? I don't even know what to do with this right
in the
now.
comments as like the first time ever. Miriam has no questions at 12:49 p.m. Eastern time on May 8th, 2021. Wow. Okay. I'm speechless.
I asked Dr. Kate some questions and I got my answers already.
Well, I mean, I know you have founded your own program, and I want to hear more about that because I'm really interested. And for those caregivers and non-caregivers that aren't able to view live right now, I would love for you to speak on it and let us know where to find you.
Yeah, happy to provide that because definitely want to be a continued resource for the both of you, for your community, for caregivers within this space. So yeah, the company I founded is called Lift Wellness Consulting, and we offer a burnout recovery coaching, but we also offer workshops, programs. And so I do try to do some free workshops that people are able to participate and sign up for. Everything is listed on the website, which is liftwellnessconsulting.com. But you can also find our page on Facebook, and that's Lift Wellness Consulting, I believe, with Dr. Kate Steiner. So if you search Dr. Kate Steiner, it should come up under that as well. And then I do a lot on Instagram and at Dr. Kate Steiner. So I'm starting to really enjoy doing reels. And so if you want to see me being silly, I think the last one I put up there was me being a cheerleader, and I did actually bring out the pom-poms that I had in high school. Because, someone might needed a little lift, pick me up, and needed a personal cheerleader. So I'm happy to serve in that capacity. But essentially, we do one-on-one coaching. I do some group programs. I'll have another group program starting here on June 1st. So if you're interested in talking more about that, and I offer a complimentary 30-minute wellness audit for anyone who's interested in learning a little bit more on whether or not coaching might be something that's helpful for them in this regard. So, and then I have a book listed for pre-order on Amazon.com. So, and that's Burnout, and it's got a really long secondary title that I should have had in front of me because I'm not going to be able to say it. But essentially, it's in helping professionals reclaim their joy in life.
Ooh, I love that. Mm-hmm. Reclaiming your joy. I love using the word joy versus happy. Who was it? It's a song. Kirk Franklin. In one of his songs, he said, I want you to have joy and not happiness, because with happiness, you have to have something happening to have that happiness. And joy is just everlasting. So shouts out to Kirk Franklin. But so ever since I heard those lyrics, I love using joy because it's true. When I sat and thought about it, I'm like, oh yeah, you kind of have to have something happening to be happy. But I love that title. Yes, Dr. Kate, with the reclaim the joy.
Yes, I'm the same. Joy is my favorite emotion to experience. So that's the one that I want to get back into people's lives as much as possible.
Love that.
Love it.
Oh my goodness. Yes. And the pre-orders on Amazon. So is it only ebook, or are you going to do both print?
It is currently listed as an ebook release. And when you go there, you're going to be like, February, that seems very far away. So I will own the fact that I am a very deadline oriented person. And so I set a deadline for myself to get that out, but I hope to have it out by early fall in the ebook version. And then we'll be working on the paperback version right after that.
Perfect. I love it. And, I'm so glad that we were able to connect.
Me too.
I love this. So I know Miriam and I are also working on launching our books as well. So everybody just, taking their time to write. And it's so healing
It
to
is
write. If you would have asked me a year
so
ago,
therapeutic. Mm-hmm.
yeah. If you'd asked me a year ago if I was going to write a book, I'd been like, you crazy. But here we are, June
Mm-hmm.
10th for Miriam and June 18th for me. So big sis always has to go first. She's got to go first. But yeah, so hopefully we can collaborate for next month again. Dr. Kate, I'd love
Absolutely.
that.
I would love to come back.
Yeah, thank you so much. This was really helpful.
Thank you.
For me personally. So thank you for taking the time again. Miriam, did you have anything else you wanted to mention?
No, I just want to thank Dr. Kate for her time and sharing those nuggets, really valuable nuggets. And I'm happy that people can watch the replay on YouTube and Facebook. And I'm already following you on
Great.
Instagram. So please make sure that you follow Dr. Kate on her platforms. And people know, some of them know where to find me. MiriamBaldwin.com, where I offer my 6-week online program for caregivers. And stay tuned for my book. Oh, it will be wonderful. Launch date is in 5 weeks. So please stay tuned. Follow me on Facebook, Miriam Baldwin, Instagram, Miriam Baldwin, Clubhouse, Miriam Baldwin. It's everywhere, Miriam Baldwin. So
everywhere.
Everywhere. I'm so excited, and I'm finishing all the details in the book. So I am so excited. And once again, thank you, Dr. Kate. It has been a wonderful conversation. And of course, Sis Ashley. Thank you.
Yes. Oh no, thank you. You always down for a chat. So I appreciate it. And speaking of which, everybody out there viewing, make sure that you are following Timely Stream events on Facebook, Instagram, all the places, YouTube. We do try to do something monthly like this, just bringing in the professionals to speak with us, try to help us be better. Just that's it. I don't know what else to say. Just to be better. So as a matter of fact, tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern time, we will be talking with a licensed mental health therapist as well. So everybody, if you can tune in, it is going to deal with trauma and healing. So I think it will be nice for the people that maybe don't have their mothers this Mother's Day to view. So, and beyond. So again, Dr. Kate, my new friend, thank you for being here with us. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time. I honestly do. And
well, thank you both for having me. So, yeah.
Well, until tomorrow, people on Facebook and YouTube, thank you for coming, and we will talk soon.
Thank you.